fellow Movie Crusaders, and welcome to our latest episode. My name is Sean Wasserkrug, and today we're going to be reviewing the latest Apple TV action film, Ghosted. Now, for me, when I first saw the trailer for this film, I was actually genuinely excited. I love Ana de Armas. I love Chris Evans. I think the plot of the film was intriguing and looked like it could be an entertaining film overall. Watching these two together in an action comedy type of rom-com type of film seems on paper a really good formula. Chris Evans, I mean, of course, Captain America, but before he was Captain America, he would do these kinds of comedy rom-com type films, as well as action films like Snowpiercer and even Scott Pilgrim to a point. And he does a really good job with it. And I actually missed funny Chris Evans to a point. We got to see that in Knives Out. And he really knows how to come off fun and enjoyable, and sometimes kind of like a doofus in certain ways. Ana de Armas, on the other hand, she has been one of these like actors that's really kind of grown into becoming an action hero. And I've really enjoyed, like, No Time to Die, she was clearly the best part of that movie. I cannot wait to see what she's going to do, I think, with The Ballerina, which is a John Wick spinoff. But seeing her being more of the action heroine of this, where Chris Evans is playing kind of more of the scared, non-action star, I was actually really excited to see how this dynamic was going to work. And overall, the film, it works, but then it doesn't at the same time. I will say the first 20-ish minutes of the movie is kind of uneven and not all that good. It does start off a little bit rocky for me, especially with Chris Evans' character. There's like this whole farmer market scene that I think just kind of falls flat. Then you have the initial introduction to him and Ana de Armas. Chris Evans plays Cole, Ana plays Sadie. Their first interaction with each other is very rough and not at all. It's supposed to be like this like meet cute, but it's actually more of just a resounding argument between these two. And then we're supposed to just have them like fall into place to go on a date with each other, and it just kind of doesn't mesh really well. Once they do go on this actual date, it does seem to relax a little bit, and we start to get kind of this, Sadie Cole relationship starting to brew. But even still, as great as Chris Evans and Ana de Armas is, something just doesn't feel right. They're not gelling well yet. Like, yes, you got super attractive people together, having fun, looking sexy, all this kind of stuff, but you're not necessarily believing the relationship yet. We get to a point where Sadie basically goes off and starts to ghost Cole, which leads Cole to go find her, and that's where the plot of the film basically starts, when he finds out that Sadie is actually a secret agent, and he is now brought in to this mission to try to save the world, which is what the general plot of the film is. But before that, we do get some scenes with Cole and his family, his mom, played by Amy Sedaris, his dad, played by Tate Donovan, and his sister, Maddie, played by Lizzie Broadway. And those scenes are very cringy. They are not enjoyable. They're not funny. They're just badly written. And I am not the biggest fan of Amy Sedaris, but when Amy Sedaris is the best performing actor in these scenes, that's saying something. It just didn't work well for me. But once we get Cole back with Sadie and we start to get into the actual like action film, and we start to get into like the CIA agent type stuff, all of a sudden the movie starts to kind of find its footing. And even then, Chris Evans and Ana de Armas' chemistry actually starts to get better, because their characters now have this added element of Cole feeling like he was lied to about Sadie, and Sadie feeling like Cole's kind of a stalker because of his clinginess, which I'm going to say this right now. Any woman out there, if you have a clingy man that looks like Chris Evans and you still don't want to be with him, that's on you, because Chris Evans is a gorgeous man, and I think any woman would die to have a guy like Chris Evans be that interested in them. But sidebar done. But it's one of those things where you have this new dynamic between them, which adds an extra layer to their performances and an actual layer to their characters interacting with one another, and it actually adds a better element to the story. It's less stagnant. It's less kind of clunky. Now, you do add some action elements. I do think there's this car chase scene on this mountainside that I actually think is shot relatively fun and really well, but the rest of the action through the film is kind of rough, which, coming from someone like Ana de Armas and Chris Evans, they're better action set pieces flew with this. Dexter Fletcher, who I actually really enjoy him as a director. I thought Rocket Man and Eddie the Eagle were really well done. I don't know if action films are going to be his real forte, because I don't think he did a decent job of portraying the action scenes or shooting the action scenes really well outside of this one car chase. Adrian Brody plays Levique, the villain of the film. His number two, Mike Moe, who plays Wagner. I actually thought he did a real good job in the film. But the film itself, it just, as you're watching it, I wasn't having a bad time with it, but it kind of felt like there was something missing. At the start of the third act, they do bring the rest of the CIA in, and it does feel kind of like it derails the film a little bit until you basically get it back to just Cole and Sadie. And once you do, it's back on track. But it seems like there's a lot of things happening in the film, but it's not gelling well. It's very clunky all the way through. There's this one part in the middle of the movie with a bunch of cameos that I actually thoroughly enjoyed, but I can see how that can come off annoying to a lot of people. But to me, it was my favorite part of the film. But at the end of the day with Ghosted, I love Chris Evans. I love Ana de Armas. I love the thought process of what they were trying to do, which for anyone who's watched this movie, this is very much like Night and Day, done by Tom Cruise, Cameron Diaz, and James Mangold directed it. It's very much like that film to a point, but it is done so much better back then with Mangold, Cruise, and Diaz on the film than it is here with Fletcher, Chris Evans, and Ana de Armas. So at the end of the day, for an Apple TV movie, it's fine. Is it something that I would ever rewatch again unless I had to? No. Is it something that I outright recommend? If you're a fan of Chris Evans and Ana de Armas and you want to see Adrian Brody as a villain, then yeah, definitely check it out, but don't be expected to be blown away by the film overall. I think it's one of those, like, it's a, and I hate that Brian and I say this sometimes, it's definitely a streaming movie, which we say that as a negative, but there are so many films that have been streaming films over the last few years that we've loved and have been like our best films of the year. But this one feels like a streaming movie, like Red Notice, where it's like, yes, you have the cast, you have set pieces, but the story or the way it was shot or something in this film is collectively missing, which makes this film feel like a miss overall at the end of the day. So in terms of recommendations, if you want to see these three leads, just go out there and shoot this film, then by all means check it out on Apple TV, but don't go out of your way to try to see it, because it's not going to be something that's going to be remembered probably a couple days after you finish watching the film. For me, I'm going to give Ghosted a 66%. When it works, but when it doesn't work, it really doesn't work. Like I said, I had fun, but the further and further I get away from it, the more and more I keep, not liking it as much. But that could just be me. But I hope you guys enjoyed this review. If you guys did, go ahead and hit that like, share, and subscribe button to the channel so you guys stay up to date with all the latest videos pop up on the Movie Crusaders. And of course, link to follow some of the social media outlets you see below. Out right now, we have a review for Evil Dead Rise. We also have a review for Hulu's Broken Lizard's Quasi as well. And we also have, coming out later, we have this week's episode of the Weekly Crusaders and this week's episode of Cinemasochism. So we got plenty of videos coming up on the channel here, so be on the lookout for all those. And until next time, in case I don't see you, go watch some movies and go have some fun.
You're still here. It's over. Go home.